Well, this week we had a. Go ahead, Brian. What's up?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Well, this week, guys, starting off the roundup, the Fed freezes $1 billion to California, and Minnesota for Medicaid. The Trump administration is pausing more than $1 billion in Medicaid payments in California and Minnesota. U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK said Tuesday. The administration froze more than 867 million in Medicaid funds from California and more than 200 million into Minnesota. Quote, they violated the social construct that makes this country strong and makes our democracy function, Kennedy said at a news conference. Kennedy said California and Minnesota can get those funds back if they provide documentary proof that the payments are legitimate. The administration used artificial intelligence, advanced analytics, and traditional finance verification to uncover fraud in both states. Mehmet Oz, the administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, said Minnesota fraud came from 14 high-risk programs, including personal care and home health services. Roughly 3 million were identified as fraudulent payments tied to documentation gaps, including payment claims for treatment provided to deceased people, Oz said. So, it just does not seem right to me that they are, I don't know. It seems very ideological that it just happens to be Minnesota and California, which are the two states that they are like targeting specifically. And it just seems very odd. They're not really giving any data or proof that they are doing it. And it just seems like another shakedown by this administration.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, since they are, I think they even explicitly, as you were reading, and I read the article, like, they explicitly use the words fraud. And so if there's fraud, like, I don't know how it works, but I imagine, like, there has to be some sort of, like, that's a crime, right? So there should be, like, some sort of criminal investigation. And, like, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but isn't this, aren't California and Minnesota also the two states that, that Nick Shirley person, quote unquote, journalist visited? I don't know if that's just a coincidence, but, his whole thing was like, he uncovered all this fraud just by going around and knocking on whatever businesses. That's basically it.
Yeah.
But like, exactly. if there's fraud, like, again, I don't know how it works, but I assume there should be some sort of investigation or like people to point to or whatever institutions to point to saying, hey, they committed fraud. And we have the evidence to back that up, as opposed to saying, well, hey, there's fraud going on in your states, so you can have these funds. I don't know. That seems a little bit off.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, yeah. I mean, if it's a crime, and it is, then why aren't you bringing charges? It sounds like they can't prove it, right? It sounds like they don't have a strong case, right? And they can't prove that the fraud happened. So they're just shaking them down for this money, and it's going to cost them lawyers and time in order to like track down this money, and it's going to be frozen, and that's just what's going to happen. Yeah, it's just wild to me.
Yeah, I would think that if the federal government is holding funding from a state or money, devoted to a state, I imagine there has to be a high barrier to cross or threshold to cross to be able to deny that money going through, as opposed to just like, casual accusations of fraud, pretty much looking for an excuse to withhold it.
I used to think that.
That seems weird. Just like in Canada, like, so even though we have, a publicly funded healthcare system, but like what happens is, like, let's say there's a certain amount of funding that comes from the provinces, but there are literally like from the federal government, like they do literally what are called health transfers, as in this money, let's say, goes to Quebec from the federal government saying, hey, this money is for your healthcare system in the province. And that, like, I can't think of anything. There might be maybe something that happened where that money was withheld, but as far as I can tell, yeah, or rather, I think the federal government will need to have a strong case to be able to justify withholding that money to the province.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone would be. I don't think that anyone would be opposed to things be like if there was actual like fraud and abuse and all that kind of stuff like that. I don't think that anyone in their right mind would say no to that. I think that that's the other frustrating part, where it's like they're using these nebulous terms that are so coded, like, politically, in this right-wing, like, ecosphere, that kind of that are all so banal that everyone would be opposed to it. It's just political games, you know?
And like, I don't like going down this road in terms of like being petty, but like
Mhm.
I think if the next president is a Democrat, like something's I think there should be someone equivalent on the left named Sick Nurley, okay, and then does the same thing, and then they happen to visit red states, and then the federal government can then withhold money from these red states and just accuse fraud.
Yeah, yeah. What are your thoughts, Prime?
It's I don't know. This is the what we usually expect from this band of criminals. I mean, with every accusation from a Republican, is an admission. Um, so they talk about these fraudulent payments to Medicare, Medicaid. Medicare and Medicaid are some of the most regulated, tight programs in terms of like keeping track of money that goes in, money that goes out. Like their accounting is like something to behold. Um, that's why, because it's been attacked over and over and over again throughout the years by Republicans, and so for its own survival, it's had to be efficient and be accountable. I guess I don't know. The point is that uh, in every system there is fraud. Like I mean, in a large enough system, right? You'll find fraud. So like it happens, right? Every so often, people get a payment that shouldn't have. They shouldn't have. They game the system, or it's just like errors happen. It's a thing that happens. But among Medicare and Medicaid, it's incredibly low. There are studies that have examined this. It's incredibly low. That and Social Security, right? These are tight systems. Compare that, right? Compare that to the goddamn Pentagon. The Pentagon that has not passed an audit ever, right? Like ever. The Pentagon cannot pass an audit. The Pentagon gets, well, I mean, an increasing amount of money. We're over $1 trillion now, right? We have been creeping up to $1 trillion for years. Now we've reached that, and then for this illegal fraudulent war that we're a part of now, that's destroying the world economy. What else would you expect? For this illegal war, they are asking for more money. We already give them $1 trillion. They say $1 trillion to keep us safe. Of course, we had to, right, to keep us safe. $1 trillion. And then now they need a couple of hundred more billion dollars, right? And then when you say, hey, maybe we should increase the payments to Medicare or Medicaid. Hey, we're broke. No money, we're broke. The Pentagon leaks like a sieve, a sieve, right? In terms of its money, it goes everywhere. We don't know where it goes. We cannot, the U.S. government right now cannot tell you where that money goes. It can't, literally can't. It tries every so often. I mean, it was a fight even just to have the Pentagon go through audits, right? And then when we started doing that, just whatever, no clue. How is that even possible? Corruption is how that's possible. These accusations are coming from fucking Donald Trump. As these two individuals know, right? Donald Trump is not like, it's not like an opinion. It's like an objective fact. The most corrupt president we've ever seen in our lifetime. No, not in lifetimes, period, actually. Sorry. In American history. In terms of the money that he's earned while in office, billions. Combine all the previous presidents, they don't come close. But But then he says these poor people in Florida and sorry, not Florida, excuse me, not Florida, in California and Minnesota, excuse me, that they're the problem. Actually, did you know they're the problem? See, taxpayers, you're being robbed. These motherfuckers, the actual criminals, right? You're being robbed. It's a farce. It's a farce, right? Same this party, right? You know who else is part of this party? Because I was thinking of Florida for a reason. See, Florida, its current senator, which was a past governor, Rick Scott, was the head of a company, right? This company, and I believe it was Medicare. I want to say Medicare, not Medicaid, but I'm not sure. One or the other. But they were convicted of the biggest Medicare fraud ever in U.S. history. The company was convicted of that. And Rick Scott was the head of it. The corporation gets a slap on the wrist, and none of its executives go to jail. And Rick Scott just goes on to, I don't know, like be fabulously successful in Republican politics. That's just like not an issue for them. The same system they're talking about, right? Like where the fraud comes from, and this is like actual truth. Where the fraud comes from in those systems comes from the suppliers, not the consumers, right? It's it is the hospitals, it is the Medicare device, like the medical device industry, right? It's the pharmaceuticals. That's where the fraud comes from all the time. Right? We find there's always these stories, and the numbers are huge. But what they want you to focus on is, okay, that maybe some grandma, right, who's struggling to get by, got an overpayment in California. Your enemy, they tell you. It's unbelievable. Every accusation is an admission from these people.
Yeah, it was $1.7 billion, the largest ever at that time, and it was with the Hospital Corporation of America. So it was both of Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay, a two.
Yeah,
excuse me.
Yeah, exactly.
You were way off prime.
Yeah, even worse than you thought. A historic $1.7 billion healthcare fraud settlement. A major for-profit hospital company where he served as CEO until his resignation in 1997. Federal investigation, which involved multi-agency raids in 1997, entered a systemic unlawful billing practices. Basically, yeah, that's wild. $1.7 billion in civil settlements and criminal fines finalized 2000 to 2003. I mean, they settled out of court. They didn't even bring it. Like that's just wild. But at least they're bringing charges. You know what I mean? This is actually going to court. The shakedown that Trump is doing, they're not even threatening that. They're not even saying, hey, we have a case here, we're doing this. They're just freezing the funds straight up. So, I mean, in 1997, basically, what could have had, I guess, Bill Clinton be like, hey, we're going to freeze you, Florida, for $1.7 billion. You know what I mean? Is that how we can do things now? I don't know.
That was 1.7 in like the 90s. So that should be at least
yeah,
like
2000 to 2003,
2.5 billion in today's money.
Yeah, that's just wild.
I mean, like, these are the people. I just want you like to understand who you're dealing with here, right? These people aren't to be taken seriously when they're talking about this, right? They will tell you once again, it's always the poorest, right? It's always the least powerful are the ones that are really bringing down America. The ones you have to be afraid of. It's the same playbook every time, right? That's where these ICE raids are coming from. Remember, those immigrants, right? They're criminals. They're running the streets. Your children aren't safe, right? So we have to crack down on them. It's basic every time. It never changes. It never changes. They use different words, but it's always the same thing. We're going to brutalize the people you don't like. Don't worry about it. That's what you hire us for, to brutalize those people. right? Like, and you don't like those California liberals, right? Not even everyone's there liberal. There's plenty of Republicans there. Doesn't matter, right? Republicans who use Medicaid, doesn't matter. We will brutalize them, right? They just happen to live in the wrong state. They live in a blue state, and so it is what it is. And in Minnesota, yeah, he didn't like Tim Walz. He had a bug up his ass about Tim Walz because Tim Walz called him a goddamn weirdo, which is what he is. He's a weirdo. Donald Trump, right?
True.
A narcissist, a little boy, and so and to get his revenge, he's going to make all these people suffer. It is what it is, right? I don't know, man. So yeah, so like when you hear these news stories, especially when it's my fucking fraud, right? Like just like consider the source, right? Who is saying this? And then consider where, because not that fraud doesn't happen. Fraud happens, right? It's a thing that happens, right? But like, who, what party makes out the most, right? Like is the people who are pointing this out to you, are they actually innocent, or are they just like distracting you from the bigger story? 1 trillion currently in the Pentagon, and they're asking for hundreds of billions more for a war that no one here watching wants. That is destroying the economy.
That was supposed to be just a few weeks, right? There's
just
no signs of...
just a few days, maybe 2 weeks. I don't know, right?
And they'll just see signs of it ending anytime sooner.
I mean, there was a good sign. Actually, there was a good sign of it ending. Recently.
Yeah, I understand what you mean with the memorandum of understanding.
No, yeah, and I hear you, but like the problem was, of course, once again, Donald Trump's ego. His ego was bruised because that MOU was absolutely, positively a document of American surrender, and he feels bad about that. That he lost a war, right? But you lost the war, and so he'll continue this war on the off chance that something changes, the facts on the ground change, and then America comes out on top, that he can take some sort of surface level victory, right? And so, yes, he'll spend billions and billions and billions of dollars of American treasure on this war.
And American lives.
American lives on this war. And then, of course, more importantly to me, right? Iranian lives on this war. Just to protect his feelings. That's literally what's happening, right? What's happening is it's a matter of like Donald Trump protecting his hurt feelings. That's what you're seeing, right? When you see those explosions, when you hear about like, Iran attacking those other Gulf countries in retaliation, when you hear about those people dying, this is all a process of Trump like dealing with his hurt feelings. That's it. Right there. So yeah.
Yep. I think it's definitely a, how are we going to pay for this kind of thing, like in the eyes of the public? And they're going to be like, wow, we are, like what, $1 billion a day in the war in Iran. They're exactly what you're saying. They're going to, PR it up and be like, wait, we're tackling waste and fraud in Minnesota and California, and there isn't fraud in the military because that protects us from at home, and you know what I mean. They're just going to use this national defense nonsense and try to find and mine that xenophobia that they had, because beware of blank, right? And you're so right, Corey. The Nick Shirley thing. What would be the analogy there? What would be the analogy where this Nick Shirley video that he had, this video series, somehow actually creates billions of dollars of funding to be stopped because he was able to get some it was just, I can't even think of the irrelevant leftist or person that would be
It seems unprecedented. That's why I was like, I think someone
Wild.
should take up the mantle of like, yeah, sick and early, and like just like mock and do the same, run the same play, just on the other side, and see how they like it.
Yeah. I don't think I see any Democrat ever kind of like stopping funding at the level for the federal government to play these games. I think that's just I think
I don't
that's
necessarily
just the
disagree
reality.
with you, but I'm
Yeah.
like, as in, are you also saying like that shouldn't happen? As in, like, I understand like I'm being petty, but I think there's a case to be made for like being petty or like going,
Oh, bro,
whatever.
I mean, I'm knives out. Like I think that you have to. Like I think like if it's legal, then that's the game, then we have to play the game. I think it's naive to not do it actually.
So then it
Where
sounds
we
like you
are.
would be disappointed if Democrats don't more or less like
Oh
do
yeah.
something. Okay,
I mean,
fair enough.
the only way that the Republican Party and MAGA comes back from the brink is that if they get a shot in the mouth too. You know what I mean? Like they're
I
punching
agree.
us, and we need to punch back. You know, and I think that that's kind of the big impetus for the Democratic Party is to kind of like push back. The Republican Party isn't going to say out of pity, like, oh well, let's stop. Let's give it, give it to the Democrats, guys. Come on, let's give, let's stop doing this. And every single Republican for the foreseeable future is going to use this newly created line item veto idea that in the guise of national defense, the president can actually dictate whatever they want line by line in the budget. And the OMB now has this congressional style funding mechanism that's just it's not in the Constitution, but it's been imagined and bolstered and solidified by the Supreme Court as it stands. So I think that you have to push it. You have to push as far as you can. I don't like it personally,
That's why I
but
don't like it, but like I think the era of like civility politics and just like hoping that people follow norms is like out the window.
yeah, I mean the handshake deal is dead.
I mean, I agree that Democrats should play hardball basically and use bend the rules as far as you can before it breaks, the way that Republicans do. I mean, or they just like break the rules. They also just break them. But I disagree that will change anything for the Republican Party. That if the Democrats engage in the same thing, I mean, they would cry about it. They'd go on Fox News and say this is unprecedented behavior, right? Pretending like they didn't just do the exact same thing, right? But the hypocrisy is just is baked in, right? Like, but like I don't know, like the Republican Party does not like operate in that way. I don't think.
Well, so I don't disagree. I don't necessarily. I like would it surprise me if like yeah, that didn't end up changing. But like I don't think we ran the experiment yet. As
we
in, like,
haven't because the Democrats aren't fighters.
yes,
I
agree.
But like I like the Republican Party has incentives to do the things that it does. And those incentives are not dependent on the Democrats.
Right.
They are,
but
yeah.
I would say actually part of that incentive is the fact that Democrats have no backbone and they don't play hardball. Or let's say the lack of disincentive is not there.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. I agree. It is. There is no disincentive to do this. Fair enough. Yeah. But I just don't feel like this would be enough to do anything. I just don't see how it would change their behavior. Yeah. Like the. Actually, I don't know what would really. The Republican Party, it's just like so far gone, like so far like removed from reality, and it's base, right? And it's cultivated this base. To be clear, like they cultivated this base. This is the base they wanted. Like the conservative ecosystem, media ecosystem, was not something that just like grew up, sprung up naturally. This was actually created by the elite billionaires, like literally like put money into it, just like Fox News. Fox News is a massively losing business, but then they got money from billionaires, right? They got to fail for years until the formula like came together and the audience came together, and then became the most watched. And this is the same for many of like the biggest online conservative outlets, right? They got paid by billionaires until they could create an audience, right? So like this is, and so like, and they've used this platform to spill more and more lies out to the public, and to cultivate conspiracy theories, all to undermine the U.S. government, undermine our faith in civil society, and divide us. And so like they've created this audience, and it's kind of like gotten out of their control to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, how do they get back? It's not because Democrats started using dirty tricks in Congress. That's not going to do it. Like, I just,
yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't disagree. Let's just say, I think it's worthy to run the experiment and see if it has any effect. At the least, I think we're all on the same page that Democrats can't afford to not play hardball, or if they don't, it's just like going to be a worsening situation, if that's even possible at this point, which it is.
But then it's even more than that, right? It's like, well, the Democratic Party at this point doesn't have any platform. Like the main part of the Democratic Party, the DNC itself, has no platform whatsoever, nothing to fight for. We saw this with Kamala Harris, and like what are they going to offer? They have nothing. That's why they don't. They're flat. They find themselves flat-footed against this progressive insurgency. They've got nothing to offer, right? Like, okay, like you're saying that these people, right, these DSA candidates are a problem, and they aren't the way that we should be going, right? Okay, well then what's your counter proposal? There is none. There literally is none. You haven't heard it. You haven't heard it from anywhere.
Oh, the counter is business as usual.
The counter is business as usual.
I mean, Kamala Harris did say that she wanted to see like a Democratic Party where there's no bad ideas. So they literally she was going around the podcast circuit saying that.
No bad ideas.
Yeah,
no bad ideas. Well, the biggest bad idea for her, right, was that Palestinian people should not be genocided. Right. That was that idea that was given to her from her party members. She rejected that like actively. No bad ideas. Well, this is nonsense, right? No bad ideas when she says, hey, I'll when asked, will you do anything differently from Biden? She said, absolutely not. I have no clue what I could do differently from Biden. No daylight between her and him. So like,
don't give me this not the greatest answer. I agree.
Yeah, no bad ideas. It's drivel, right? It's drivel. That's like a person who actually has no idea, principles, no guiding light, saying, yes, of course, we'll have a team of rivals within our cabinet, right? Like, that just means status quo. That's all that means, right? I'm saying this to you that, of course, well, yes, the door's wide open. Wide open to what, right? Who will be the loudest voices? Right? Will it be the new insurgents into the party, or would it be all the people, the minor elite that had status and positioning in the party, right? Well, she proved that throughout the entire campaign. So yeah, but no bad ideas. Please, let's not get distracted by that. Honestly.
I mean, I think that, as someone said in chat, I think that she's willing to hear all ideas and debate and talk about all the ideas.
Yes, except, hey, don't genocide the Palestinians. She was definitely willing to hear everything but that, right? And in fact, she tossed people out of her campaigns, who her rallies, right, who were saying exactly those things. I'm talking, she said, right? Don't interrupt me, right? She wanted to hear all those ideas, except for the one where where she would part herself, right, away from the most powerful forces within the Democratic Party. Right, the ones where she would have to take a moral stance. Yeah, she didn't have those ideas. It's BS. Like, she's literally, again, on the campaign trail, not this last campaign, previous campaign, where she was actually running as a candidate. She like lied multiple times as to like what she wanted. She would say on the debate stage one thing and then be asked about it afterwards and take it back. I mean, she did that. She did it to Biden. She did it famously to Biden, right? When talking about school busing, where she had this amazing moment where she says, I was one of those kids, right? When Biden wanted to dismantle school busing, and she confronts him about it and says that was wrong, and like literally nails Biden. Perfect, right? And then afterwards, when asked about it, in his position, would you have ended school busing? Well, of course I would have, because she has no morals, she has no principles. So you're telling me, oh yeah, she's going to listen to all ideas, right? But the ones that will actually carry the day will be the most powerful voices, the most moneyed voices, which actually happened during the 2024 campaign.
I mean, in theory, I agree with her, like in the idea that like we do need a Democratic Party primary that is open to new radical ideas, and we should be debating more of a change in political revolutionary kind of like moment. So, like, I mean, maybe those were, you know, to give her the best possible light. You know, maybe those were the Biden presidency handlers or something, and she's had a change of heart.
She didn't have a campaign of her own, right? Once again, being the incompetent person that she is, she just like inherited Biden's campaign. Like by that I mean like literally her staffers, her infrastructure. That was all Biden's. That was Biden's. She didn't build it out herself. I mean, I'll be a little bit fair to her, right? Like she had very little time to do so, right? So I'll consider that. But like Biden hated her. Biden didn't like this woman. Biden sidelined her throughout his term. And that's why she had nothing to run on herself, right? Like, oh, this is what I've done during the Biden presidency. Well, I mean, the only thing that he gave her was to be the immigration czar, something that she had very little control of, right? Could make very little difference. All she did was go to South America and tell all those people don't come. That's literally all she did the entire time. She was completely sidelined. Right? Biden ran on. And literally promised that he'd be, you know, a transitional president, for the new generation of Democrats, right? And part of the implication was that, oh, well, for Kamala Harris, yeah, no, that's not what happened. And so she had absolutely nothing to go on, and I mean, yeah, I mean, she just had no record, and so like, oh yeah, I now I remember what I was going to say. So because she had so little time to put together a campaign, because Biden was a liar, pretending he was going to run a second time, but he did, right? Complete and utter liar. You know, what can you expect from Biden? Because she had so little time, she didn't really put together a campaign. And those Biden loyalists were like butthurt that Biden got pushed out of the primary, right? They were still, once again, coddling their own feelings. And they sabotaged her over and over again, where she might have done better. She honestly had a shot to do much better. But I mean, again, Kamala Harris being the spineless individual that she is, she did nothing to change this, right? And she kind of just went along with whatever she was told. Again, not a president, not a leader, ever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. Well, I guess we'll see. But
she was never a leader. I mean, name when she led forward.
No, I'm not saying I agree with you now, but like nothing rules out, you know, in 2 years from now, right?
No, I mean, this is an old woman. Sorry, this is an old woman. There's no reason to believe that she'll be any different. I've watched her her career for many years now, hoping. Again, I liked her at the start. I've said this many times. I liked her at the start, and I was hoping for her to do better. I was watching her career eagerly, right? No, she doesn't have it. Right, but I want her to run. She's like making noises that she wants to run again. Please do. I want to humiliate her one more time. Right, I want her to get on a stage, and then we can end this, because right now we'll have these conversations. We're going to keep having these conversations until 2028, where hopefully she shows up, right? And people will say, well, now she doesn't have the Biden baggage holding her back. She still will, right? The genocide, of course, that will hang over her head. The voters won't forget, but still. Putting that aside, you know, the slaughter, putting that aside, like she'll get a chance to actually once again make her case. She's already run before. She's already done this before, right? But she'll get a chance to make her case. And we'll see once again that she has no spine, that she can't, that she will go wherever the political winds are blowing in that particular moment. right? But as soon as she feels that there's an advantage going somewhere else, that's what she'll do. She's done it her entire career, right? No reason to feel any different.
I don't disagree with you, but like I'm just like again, just trying to be at least as charitable as possible. Like there's nothing potentially stopping her from people change at any point. Like I would say there was an evolution of like even like Hillary Clinton.
I'm sorry. Why be charitable to the powerful? It's so weird, right? Why spend time being charitable to the powerful? Why? Right? She was the vice president. She was the vice president. Why be charitable to the powerful? They weren't charitable to those kids in Gaza. They flattened, right? They weren't charitable to them. So, like, why be charitable to the powerful? It's so weird that we do this all the time. Let's stop. Let's stop. Let's focus on the vulnerable, right? Just like in this the story that we started off with, right? I don't need to be charitable of Donald Trump, right? Oh, if I don't be charitable of Donald Trump, hey, maybe there is fraud. Like I said from the very start, there's fraud in every system, and maybe he's actually addressing that. Wow, what a great president! There might be fraud, and he's doing something, right? And maybe this will be a shock to the American system, right? Hey, that kind of fraud is not allowed, right? Or you can just realize he's a powerful individual who's using his position to brutalize the weakest among us. Let's do that. Let's not worry about being charitable to the most powerful people. Fuck them.
Okay. Well, I would say the charitable interpretation to Donald Trump would be like maybe there is fraud, but then he has to prove it. I'm just saying like Kamala has to prove it. I agree with you that there's no reason to believe that Kamala Harris will prove to be a better candidate in 2028. I'm ultimately saying like there's a possibility. That's it.
Yeah.
Just like there is a possibility there's fraud, but you have to prove it. Like put up or shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, moving to fraud and bad ways of figuring out what is actually a good representative or a good leader. It seems like a trend, guys. White House admits it used keywords to kill billions dollars worth of California research grants. Coming out of AP on the 22nd, 2 days ago, quote, federal agencies that determined more than 1,000 research grants at the University of California. Hey, that's right. Last year admitted that they used keywords related to diversity, gender, and vaccine hesitancy and COVID-19 to screen for projects that ran afoul to Trump administration priorities. It's an admission that lawyers for the research professors say is proof that the agencies illegally canceled nearly $2 billion in grants. Excuse me. And that a major development in a lawsuit filed by UC researchers against the Trump administration to permanently get their grants back. The researchers' legal team is now asking the judge in the case to skip a trial and formally declare the White House repeatedly violated the Constitution, including the First Amendment. A court hearing on that is scheduled on October 20th, my birthday. That's a little, all right. Let's get UC gets $2 billion back on my birthday.
I hope that's a good omen.
Yeah, exactly. The federal agencies made the admission about the keywords and signed stipulations filed in federal court last week in case against Thakur v. Trump that's been ongoing since last spring. You know, like I really do appreciate that we have a lot of errors in our justice system, and I'm not like giving any deference to those, but man, I do appreciate as a scientist that there is like a fact of the matter that people talk about in law, you know, where people actually have to prove things. They have to actually show things like if you're, you know, things happen, things were agreed to, you're going against that contract, or things you know, are the way that they are, and you get to battle that out in court. You know, I think that it is a little weird in law, it's kind of more performative versus science, which is kind of third party to nature, when we kind of like observe nature and then test and mingle with nature and then kind of like try to understand this third person idea. But with law, I just do appreciate that, man, that you have the, and does it mean anything that these are at least going to court, or that we are fighting the Trump administration against it? Does that give us any hope?
Well, so I think it matters because if I remember reading from the article, like the one of the judges like blocked it, or I think it was like a temporary like injunction. That means like
Mhm.
where the funds actually ended up being unlocked, as in like if the funds were actually unlocked in the meantime, then yes, that's a good thing. But if this is like more or less like the funds are still locked away, and like this all has to resolve itself before the or let's say a judgment has to be ruled for the funds to be unlocked, it just sounds like this is just like a delay tactic, or like this is yeah, like does it really matter if the funds are blocked or they're delayed 3 years? Is that any meaningful difference? I would say effectively there's still going to be people losing their jobs. There's still going to be postdocs not funded, grad students not funded, projects either stalled or like never happened, or like projects that required that funding and that like they were on a trajectory, and now like it's an even further waste of money, because sometimes you can't stop projects in the middle of it, or if they're stopped, you have to start all over again. You probably know that better than I do.
Exactly. No, yeah, it's 100% true, man. Yeah, it is true. Like, Prime, do you think that like we should have more or less kind of like fight in the courts? It seems also fruitless. Like the Trump administration is just going to claim national defense, and they have the executive order in order to the mandate, and they're the president of the United States, and they're immune, and doesn't matter. Go pound sand.
I think it's a larger conversation, which I won't divert us into, but just like in general, we need to dismantle this national security state that like empowers presidents just do whatever. The claim something national security just like unlocks a bunch of powers to just like bypass democracy, and it's a constant thing within our government. It's something that just at some point just really needs to be addressed. I don't know. This is just like part of a Project 2025, that type of stuff. This is an effort to dismantle the government in all the ways that it like interacts with the general public. There's not a general public program, but I mean like in all the ways that the government provides to any sector that isn't the military, really, or the elite in general. And so these scientists aren't elite individuals, and they would rather, in their minds, like the market will provide. The market will do all that research. There's no reason to believe that the market will. Really, the market can do some things like quite efficiently, but as we've talked about, specifically usually when we're talking about the pharmaceutical industry, right? Like it costs a lot of money to do research and development. It just costs a ton of money to do that, and
money and time.
Great,
correct?
Yeah, money and time, indeed. And it's just easier when the government can do it. Can start provide that help, because they're not looking to make a profit, and so but again, these people just don't want to dismantle government. This is just one step in that, right? They don't think that government really can do anything, is a source of innovation, even though almost all of American history says otherwise, and so like this is just another step in that manner. And so you asked me about the courts. I mean, yeah, look, fight them anywhere you can. I say,
Agreed.
Fight them. There's no
in
reason
the streets.
One day we'll find him. But I mean, fight them where you can legally, and the courts have been a tool, but understand that, and this is more of an Obama thing than a Biden thing. The Republicans have filled out the court system with their people. Republicans, like in general, just like for decades, have had a laser focus on the courts for understanding, like for this moment, right? Understanding that these fights were coming. And so they've stuck the courts. Biden actually did a good job of putting people on the court. Obama did a shit job, just awful job there. And we were paying the consequences. Like Trump had like a clear field when he came into office the first time. And like we've seen again and again since that point in time, again and again, the consequences of that. So
100%. Yeah. McConnell famously filibustered federal court appointments, and that was the nuclear option that they were talking about and debating. Like if you because we're going to start appointing people at 50% plus one on the Senate for the federal courts, and that's what started the whole thing with the Supreme Court. Then we're going to do Supreme Court 50% plus one, and that's what led all that nonsense to happen. Exactly right. It's a shame, and it also, this thing kind of like also solidified what scientists thought, that their grants were actually being cut because they were using the words transgene, which is like, transgene is something that's outside the body that you're putting it into the DNA of the organism. So they're transgenic, technically. Like everything that I make as a molecular biologist is technically a transgenic organism. And so there's trans bacteria, you know what I mean? And now, and a part of that would be making trans mice. So they really did think that we were using billions of dollars to make trans
this is what happens. We have dummies in charge.
Yeah, it's literally wild. Like just the idea that they think that we're spending billions of dollars to make mice trans. It's wild.
But actually it's worse than that, because they don't think that because like a person didn't review this, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's very unlikely. I mean, it could have happened, right? And it could have just been, you know, a regular run-of-the-mill idiot. But it probably, as you know, the story is saying, is that like it was put through some sort of algorithmic filter, right? Like, or they just did a control F for like the DEI, right? For the DEI buzzwords. And that's how they did it, right? So like no one's like sat there and like thought about it. It's like, oh, are these words there? They are, and so it's gone. So like when you're saying they think that, probably no one thinks anything. They just didn't bother.
Yeah. They're just running through ChatGPT. They literally just, they admitted to it in court. They just used ChatGPT, said find these words, cut all of them. Just it was that thing.
And
but go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as alluded to, like, shouldn't, let's say, this be a major issue like in Congress? And so I think, as alluded to in the article, it's like, well, and as I guess the saying goes, like, Congress has the power of the purse, as in like this money is like delegated by Congress, and it's like being like, as in like, it sounds like the federal government shouldn't have the power to block it, right? Because Congress has delegated this money to these grants. And so like, well, how does that reconcile with Congress having the power of the purse? Your purse is pretty powerless if like someone else goes in.
What is this, Schoolhouse Rock? What is this? What is this, Corey? That's the 1787.
Hey, I'm Canadian. That's where I learned all about American politics. The school.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what Prime's talking about too. It's like this new modern presidency that has been ushered in, that John Roberts rewrote the Constitution on. And I don't know, man. Like I am genuinely of two minds of it. Like, one, we just try to actually get back to like a working constitution, but at the same time, hey, if the research, if the defense Department of Defense budget's $1.5 trillion now, not 700, not 800 like it was before, guys. $1.5 trillion. And they okay that, and that's just like the slush fund that the president gets to have their way with. I'm honestly down with like just saying, okay, that's the money. Well, we're gonna do mass layoffs in the Department of Defense. We are going to cut the military spending and massively increase national defense initiatives in regards to climate change, infrastructure, renewable energy, these type of things that the Department of Defense was actually already stipulated for decades, that the number one national defense problem that we have in the future is climate change. So you just say that, bring in infrastructure spending, bring in economic development through that $1.5 trillion. Like if that's just the presidential purse now, like why are we going to give that away? I think you really have to have a forward looking thing on it. I hate that, but that's also like a huge amount of money that we would be giving away if we don't use that.
Yeah, but it's just curious to me how Congress is like okay with more or less. It seems like their power being like eroded, like interfered with.
Exactly, bro. That's why even be a congressman if all you're gonna be is like, what is your point? I mean, the whole idea is honestly that Congress is like very very powerful, right? It can bring impeachments. It has power of the power of the purse. It can bring. That's where the investigations start because you can be pulled in front of Congress, right? But guess what? That's all been evaporated. The Trump administration and Trump 1 found out that you don't actually. It doesn't. You can lie to Congress all you want. They can try to come after you, and maybe they do, right? And if you have a contempt of Congress charge. But guess what? You just wait until your next president that's in your party, and then you get a pardon. You get a federal pardon.
Yeah, that's because like no,
So-
I don't think I don't think it's truly been tested in that way before. Although obviously I'm
It has.
obviously ignorant
Yeah.
on American history, but like yeah, like what would it look like for Congress to go after a president, right? Like,
I mean, we've had it with Trump 1. I mean, they did it. They impeached him multiple times. Yeah, I mean but the problem is that, and this is what Trump has highlighted, the fatal flaw of our Constitution, that since the Department of Justice is run through the executive branch, there's no enforcement mechanism for the other branches to enforce onto the executive.
yeah, that's ultimately what I mean. Of like even if Congress and I believe like and the Senate also impeached Trump, but if he just like hung around, right, and just like I'm just not going
Who's going to
anywhere,
remove
right?
him? Who's going to remove him? Like
He's
how
the
who
commander-in-chief,
removed him?
right?
Exactly. Who's going to remove him from the building? Like who is I just I mean, this is, but anyway, this is
And that's where like it ultimately like relies on norms of like if you're given the command and like if you have any respect for the Constitution and like the values of your country, then if you're impeached, both I guess in the House and the Senate, you should just leave. Or the expectation is you follow the norm.
I don't know why nobody. Oh, thank you, Bobby. None of the Republican Party is playing the game as if the other player is gonna have the pieces. You know what I mean? Nobody's playing like they want the Democrats to have this power. So I feels very it feels very dangerous right now. But I think that we have to use that to our advantage and be like, if this does happen, then we have to push their shit in a little bit. Okay, well, on to our big story this week. Really interesting, big story coming out of Science Mag, basically an exclusive that came out, kind of an investigative journalism. Science Magazine. I mean,
and Retraction Watch as well. Those collaborations.
Yes. Yeah. Science Magazine in the United States, Nature in the UK. These are kind of like the biggest journals in the world. And basically it's a long narrative story. But the point is, let me see if I can find the paragraph. But the point is that there was a young girl that had a disease that they thought they could fix through gene editing, and they had to use a gene editing technique they actually mentioned David Arlou multiple times in the story, guys. Yeah, it's very cool. So many people talk about gene editing and base editing without actually mentioning him, so I'm like actually happy that he actually got some stuff. But anyway, so unlike baby KJ, who we've talked about many times, baby KJ was a liver disease that they fixed through base pair editing. This was in the brain, so it's much harder, there's less wiggle room, basically, less proven techniques.
There's a whole new set of challenges that comes with delivering stuff to the brain.
Exactly, and they basically used an adeno-associated virus. And the virus basically has a size limit, like a physical size limit, right? Because you have like the cap of the virus, and that can only hold so much genetic material. And Cas9 is kind of well, CRISPR, or the endonuclease, that's the kind of like the money unit, the protein unit, is big. So you need like a lot of space in order to do that, in order to deliver that genetic material. They couldn't do it in one, so they had to do it in two separate ones, causing some like problems there. How are those pieces going to find each other? How are they going to link together? There is some usually in molecular biology, if you have this type of thing, you actually have like a linker, like a literal linker from one protein to a next, so that they can find each other really easily. That's if you have to do it like on the same piece of DNA. But we're talking about completely separate, things that need to find each other in space, dock together, protein bind, and then do their thing. Basically, they were doing some work in mice, had some data that was faulty at best. And this was actually it's really crazy, man, looking at these images. So this is the brain image that they were talking about here. And so, it's funny, like these right here, these algae that I'm seeing, this is the exact same technology that you're seeing right here. This is called confocal microscopy. Okay. Confocal microscopy illuminates cells at a certain wavelength. It excites them at a certain wavelength, and then it captures the emission at another wavelength. And it's supposed to be very, very narrow. So you excite them at one single wavelength, and then you capture a small wavelength. So the idea is that you don't have backgrounds. The background is the stuff that you would get if you hadn't delivered anything and you were just exciting the material. And what I found is that it is so easy to excite anything with enough laser. You can capture anything. So you pump enough laser into some tissue, you are going to get something excited, and you are going to have an emission, and you are going to be able to capture that with confocal microscopy. That was it took me like 2 years to do this, to actually get this one right here with the dye. And you should see the negative control where I don't have it. It's pitch black. It's very, very, very hard to do it. You basically want to give as little laser as possible, and you want to have as narrow band as possible in the catching, in the bucket that you want. This very small bucket. My point is that one, they didn't have a negative control here, so they didn't have the background that they could subtract, which is very bad. That is very, very, very bad science. Negative, you basically only know if you have an experiment by your negative control. So the fact that they didn't even have a negative control is very, very telling. And two, it doesn't look like, honestly, it does not. Too much of this image is basically red. Like too much of this image, I don't know these cells, but I'm just telling you from my years of confocal microscopy, like every single cell is probably not going to be the thing. You know what I mean? Like every single thing. I had some absolute stellar, like 3 a.m. confocal microscopy sessions where I'm like, oh my gosh, I finally did it. And then I subtract the background and it's just nothing. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so frustrating. So my point is that this looks beautiful. Okay. It looks beautiful as a confocal microscopy image, but it's bad in terms of science. They took this bad image, still injected this child with this experimental medicine, and she died because of that. She died. She developed the adeno-associated virus fever. She died shortly after there. And basically, they took they changed the images, the microscopy images. They changed the results. Didn't include the fact that this child died with this stuff, and then published it as if that didn't happen. So, like very, very messed up. for a whole host of reasons. One, that they basically, with the super experimental medicine, took this really huge leap, and having a medicine and not confirming it, and then injecting it into a patient who didn't have like a severely lethal disease. Like she still had like years left. She could have waited basically to have a better medicine. And then two, like why scrub the stuff when you're republishing this? You should like talk about it, like what happened here. So just a whole host of problems that's really sad about it. And like obviously this kiddo died. And then also like what were these researchers doing? Like I can't I it's so sad.
So I have, I guess I'm actually still processing, let's say, all my full thoughts. And as of right now, I'm pretty conflicted, as in like, based off of what was outlined in the article, and it was like a pretty thorough article. It's like, does all of the responsibility lie on the scientists and physicians? There's a case to be made there, but also, like the parents reached out to the scientists, right? As in like, I believe like the initial point of contact was like the parents in understandable
Yeah.
desperation emailed that researcher, told their story, and like and he was convinced that he can pull it off. And like I agree with you in terms of like your criticisms of, let's say, their microscopy images, and like, let's say, bare minimum, poor scientific rigor, but like nothing explicitly fraudulent. But like I can also understand, like I think every scientist has been there, of like, if you want something to be true, sometimes you will like
Yeah.
take some risks, or not be as rigorous as you want to be. Just like you, as you said, for confocal microscopy or fluorescence microscopy, you can adjust the parameters to more or less get anything that you want. Okay,
You really can.
I can adjust the slit width. Okay, and like I can just have this huge emission and get anything to fluoresce, right? And if the stakes are high enough, and if you have desperate parents in the background saying, "Hey, save my child," I'm not saying this is right, but I can understand, or probably understand, why a scientist would, let's say, go down the rabbit hole, like, I'm going to maybe not be as rigorous as I should be or could be. And also, young scientists trying to, do a Hail Mary type of thing as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
so
they
for
did
me, it's
spend like
difficult.
$900,000 of their own money.
Their own,
They
and it seems like
yeah.
there was some interesting financial agreements that occurred there.
Yeah. And especially considering, and they talk about it in the article, in China, they did do, after the CRISPR twin baby studies, that was very reckless. Early after the CRISPR was first used as a technology. So I think it's like kind of like it's frustrating. I think I don't think China wants this, right? I don't think that the Chinese government wants
That's
this. They
definitely
don't
true.
want to be seen as like this reckless outlaw state. I think that they want to be seen more legitimate. And the scientific community, we kind of see Chinese labs as not necessarily the most reliable, reproducible data. You kind of like, if you see it in a Chinese lab, that's good. That's better than no study. But then you also need to replicate it somewhere else. First, you want to see it replicated in the United States at another big lab, and you don't want to be the person that's sitting there trying to replicate something that's only happened in China. That seems it's a fruitless task. It's not xenophobic. It's just they put out a lot of papers.
The sheer volume, that's the thing of like,
Yeah.
they're like, you can go by the metrics, like there are absolutely prestigious research institutions in China, and they're only increasing there. But the
Exactly.
sheer volume of research that's coming out of China, it's like it's impossible to keep up with. And like yeah, there's absolutely levels of fraud there. But it's hard to separate the quality research from the poor quality research, since there's just so much of it coming out of China.
Yeah. Prime, do you have any thoughts?
I won't be of much use here. I don't really understand the science or anything like that.
Mhm.
Other than um, experimental is experimental.
Do you
Um,
see like do you, I mean I think that this kind of goes into what we were talking about before in the FDA like regulations. I don't think that the FDA approves this, or I don't think that this goes through like the David R. Liu experiments for baby KJ. They did actually did all of the might. This it honestly shows how incredible what baby KJ did. What that was the fact that within a year they designed it, designed and created the mice. The mice experiments did well. Then they administered that into baby KJ. Um, I mean, are you more or less concerned about
But I
that
don't.
work?
I haven't looked. It's been. I
Mm,
haven't looked into it deeply, but I don't believe they used AAVs there in the trial.
correct,
Yeah,
correct. It's a
and
different
and
delivery mechanism.
and
Correct,
arguably, like the base editing was probably not the cause of this child's death. It seems to be largely driven by
correct,
the AAV aspect.
correct. Yeah, yeah. For the it was definitely for the delivery. I think for sure. I guess my question is like more or less worried about a world after hearing about this story, Prime. Are you like more or less worried about the world where like we're going to see more medicines coming from China that would be only from Chinese government approval and that haven't been FDA approved yet? Do you know what I mean?
mm, uh,
That's
okay.
probably in the
Well,
pipeline.
like what I was saying before, experimental is experimental, and if you opt to be part of some sort of experimental trial, right? Like, yeah, you might die. Like, I mean, like, or you might suffer some awful consequences. These aren't it isn't a finished product, and so that's a risk that you definitely take. Like, yeah, maybe the science is bad. Well, I mean, it hasn't been tested yet, and you're signing yourself or your child up for that. So, but I don't know. We talked about this, I guess, previously. And no, I'm not particularly worried about like China. Like I don't know, it seems like nefarious. The Chinese government approved, right? Where they're not FDA approved. Well, one, like we probably wouldn't get our hands on it if it wasn't FDA approved. So I don't know why that would be a concern for Americans. And two, like, if it went through some process, right? Like China wants to be successful. They want to be a major power in all aspects. And part of it's scientific. They don't want to put out bad products, right? Like that's just embarrassing to them, and so they want to have a level of rigor to them. So, like, I don't know, yeah. Now, I mean, like I acknowledge what Corey was saying on the amount of like vast research, but a paper, as you all very well know, is very much different from a finished product, especially when we're talking about medicine. And
Mhm.
so it's would it concern me that like there are a ton of medicines on the market that are Chinese government approved? No. Why would it? There's like I'm not like there might be other medicines made by other nations approved by their government, German government approved.
What about dirty
Like,
Canadian
yeah, they
pharmaceuticals
might be dirty Canadian, yeah, like Canadian
tainted with maple
approved. It's
syrup?
fine. Oh,
I mean,
sounds delicious.
is it weird? Is it weird to you that they omitted the fact that that she died?
um that during an experimental trial, someone admitted from what?
The paper, the publication.
Oh, from public.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
after these events occurred, they published a paper that included some of, let's say, the results and data from the trial with a child, but they didn't actually include any of the details well,
Yeah,
sharing that the child passed away
yeah.
and
Well, curated. Well,
yeah,
curated.
basically.
Oh, yeah. That's fair. I mean, like that sounds uh like a willful omission, possibly to deceive. And so yeah, I mean that's fair, but like that's not. I mean, that wasn't the. I mean, that's a new question, but like it's like it takes us away from like my confidence in Chinese medicine, right? I don't have to have confidence in any particular Chinese researcher, because they all of them have, researchers everywhere have an incentive to lie, right? For their own success, or to admit things, right? To make themselves look less bad. Like there's a lot of reputational management that happens. In fact, both you, Dr. Greg, and Corey have talked about that among researchers, the ones who are tenured and just like pottering around and not like actually doing anything, right? Like there's a lot of reputational management that happens at universities. It's just a thing that happens. So does it concern me that they omitted from the paper? I mean, in the sense that, like, I don't know, the fraud happened within science, like not fraud, but like science is being done badly in general. But like, and am I concerned about the Chinese in particular? Not even a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. But let's say, circling back a little bit, as in like, for you, Greg, like, do you more or less like place all of the blame on the scientist, or like, because like again, I don't know that it's fully the scientist's fault when a parent is reaching out to you and they're saying save my child. It's difficult to say no to that.
Dude, I've been thinking about this a lot. Like,
if you feel, and scientists can convince themselves of positive results. All this, I've been guilty of it, I'm sure, at some point, and will be at some point. But like, yeah, if this scientist and researcher genuinely felt like they had the power to save this child, what do you do with that? Or like, what do you do when a parent approaches you saying, "Hey, you seem to have the technology to save my child, and I'm willing to pay you," and like, not only pay you, but it seems like they were also paying like to do the foundational research, maybe not the greatest foundational research, but like go through at least some steps of like mouse, primate, human.
I think that it's okay to pay for it privately. I think it's okay to be done. I think that the researchers are 100% accountable for not telling the parents that they didn't have the data, the confidence that they from that data. I think that's where, if they would have told the parents like, hey, this is 50-50 at best, like this is going to work, because the toxicity data and everything is showing up really bad in these mouse models and we're having a bad problem with it. Like then it's up to the parents, right? The parents have that capability and the parents are like, hey, this is, if she has stage 4 cancer or whatever, and this is our only chance, then let's go for it. Or if she doesn't, then it's up to them. I think it's, like personally, like, should I have the ability to make my own medicine and just slam into my veins to see if I had like a year to live or something, and then yeah, if it wasn't FDA approved and I couldn't afford the medicine and I have the expertise and my knowledge to create this medicine, then I should be able to make it for myself. But I'm taking that risk. I'm understanding what the percentage is. But as soon as you're doing it for someone else, you really have to just tell them like, hey, we don't have this. We're gonna have to, let's run the study again. Let's just run the mouse model again, or let's try something else. Or especially not even having a control. That really frustrates me. That's wild. Like,
well,
you always
I agree, but like, I don't. It may just be a matter of like they didn't have the money to do that type of thing, or like the resources. There could be a number. Again, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but like from what I understand, like that data there with the confocal microscopy, like that's showing like the primate data. And so it's like they may not just have had enough primates access to primates, or like they only had enough AAVs for like 1 dose or 2 doses, whatever it is. I can understand. Again, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm just saying there could be justifiable reasons as to why they cut corners.
It's tough. I mean, I would say, like, I always told, because I was always in the camp, and I'm always in the camp. If you don't have the space on the plate in order to run your controls with your experiments, then you just don't have an experiment yet. You know what I mean? Like,
so, but like this is maybe this might be too tangentially related, or like maybe too off topic,
Yeah.
but like when it comes to human, sometimes you can't run or it's unethical to run the controls.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
and so like, what do you
Yeah.
do in that case?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's really tough, especially with mammalian, like the models. It's very tough because it's extremely expensive, and it should be, right? Because those are you have to make sure that those animals are living like a life that's not just like torture and something. You have to like make sure that they're actually having some type of quality of life. It's tough, man. I don't know. I don't know the exact answer. I think as long as you're telling the patient and the parents in this case, like what the percentage is, I think that, and really relaying that, I think that and being 100% transparent, I think that's all that you can do. You know, I think I don't
I don't
know. I
disagree
think
there,
that's
but I'm just curious what your thoughts on this of like, in this context,
Mhm.
like when you're literally like trying to pioneer a technique, then like
Mhm.
a molecular technique, like, do you think like informed consent is achievable in this context with both
Yeah,
the
I do.
parents? Uh,
Yeah, I think that you can. I think that you can. Like, you tell them these is what's the good part of the study, and this is what the bad part of the study is. Um, you know, like that's the yeah. I think that that's what
I'm
you
more
have
talking
to
about
do.
informed consent of like, actually like, do the parents actually understand what is happening?
What
Like,
is the
what is
good
the
and the
actual
bad part? Yeah,
therapy?
it's tough. I mean, it really is tough. I mean,
Because like a scientist reader can make up. I'm not saying that they should or that this is
Mhm,
ethical, but like they can make up all kinds of outcomes. Like these are good outcomes, these are bad. Make your decision. It's like,
mhm. Yeah, what do they
but
know? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. My primer can be 17 or 15 base pairs, 45 versus 55% GC. What do you think? Like, what? I don't know. You know,
yeah,
they don't know.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, how do
So,
you like, if you're really trying to, at least as much as possible, reach as close to as possible of informed consent. Like one would think of like it's getting them to understand like the actual therapy, right? Of like, what is an adeno-associated virus? And like, why is this not an infectious virus? How is this a virus therapeutic, right? And hollowing it out and packaging the DNA inside. Like, I don't know, can you get them to understand that to any meaningful, you could probably get them to understand it, but can you get them to understand it in a way that they integrate and actually fully understand like the actual challenges that this brings? Like even I myself
No,
with my background.
I think what Dr. Greg was saying before was made more sense. That like, hey, like here are the percentages, right? Like, hey, like we don't have the data. We don't have, like this is what a full set would look like, right? Like where we could have like adequate confidence. This is what we're missing, right? Like this is we're very early days with this treatment. And so like I mean, it's a dice roll, not even like 50 from like everything I've seen here. Doesn't like it sounds too optimistic, right, for what this was. Um, I think yeah, you should have informed consent. I think and I also agree with Dr. Greg when he said earlier that like things get tricky when you're doing this for another person. Like I agree, like with Dr. Greg, he should put whatever he wants in his veins at any point in time. I think. Um, but when you're talking about a child, I'm like, in terms of moral situations, it's like awful, right? Stage 4, like, uh, I mean, like you guys said, like she might have had years to wait for something better, which I guess is a consideration. I mean, I don't know how likely she was to live those number of years. I'm not an expert here, so I couldn't tell you. Um, but like the options aren't great all around for like a kid with stage 4 cancer, right?
True.
Um, so, but like in terms of like trying to inform someone, yeah, like we don't have this is not a finished product. This is not even a product that's far down along of testing. This is like very early days, and um, yeah, I mean maybe we can agree to do it, but you just need to realize that like you might be hastening your child's death. Have to understand it. If you can get that to understand that, because that's the crux of the matter, right? Everything else, you know, the science that you were talking about, Corey, right? That's like extra fluff, right? That's just all that's saying. All that says is what I just said, right? In many more words. Like, yeah, you might hasten the death of your child. That's the important part. If they can understand that, and sorry.
Just to clarify, I was saying that if it was a stage 4 and it was years to go and you knew that the end was in sight, but this was a manageable condition. This was a manageable condition, which is part of the problem. I think that was like the stipulation.
I agree.
That it was actually kind of like, that was like, why be so
Then
risky?
okay, well then,
but then it's like, why are the parents, although I understand any parent is going to be, if their child is ill, no matter what, whether mild or severe condition, there probably going to be some sort of desperation there. But it's like, it seems like these parents, like they sought out like pioneering research, right?
Yeah, probably a little too hasty. I think a little too hasty.
Yeah, and it's like, and I agree. It is. Let's say if it was never explicitly stated or informed of like the an outcome of this is your child dying, like I agree, that's a problem, that's unethical. But I would also like think that it's somewhat implicit in like you're a parent reaching out to groundbreaking researchers and experimental medicines. Like,
what are they going to do? What else are they going to do other than?
But it's not implicit. I don't think
I agree. I agree. It's not explicitly implicit, but I think there's a case to be made.
Implicit. No, it's not implicit. Like this is. I think what have we been talking about here for the past few months, right? How people should have trust in science, right? That people should understand the scientific model is our best source of knowledge, right? And of progress. And that you should reject these anti-science conspiracy theories. Okay, well, that sounds like what these individuals did. That they trusted science, that they had a child suffering from, whatever, and they wanted an answer. They wanted a solution. And so they reached out. They heard something, and it sounded promising to them. I don't know what their backgrounds are, right? And how well they processed all that. But like it sounded promising, and so they reached out. This is them trusting science. I think it needs to be made explicit to them that these are the possibilities, right? So that they really know, and not just one conversation, a few conversations. We're like, hey, we just got to talk about this again. We have to look at it from a different aspect. Hey, just so you know, again, we'll agree to do this thing for whatever reason. It seems like that maybe that shouldn't have happened in the first place, but still, we'll agree to do this. But like, we just don't have the data to assure the safety of your child. But we can go down that road.
So just to show, so I pulled up clinicaltrials.gov just so this is what the United States does, and we kind of, anything with the human trial basically goes on to clinicaltrials.gov, and any person can basically adversarially review it. They can go through and see the study, what it is, the study plan, all like the medicines that it is, all the publications, everything about that. They have like kind of like a layman's study details. Then they have a research review that has even more details, exactly what it is, like in scientific jargon terms, that lots of 3-letter acronyms, so it's legitimate. So
FBI, CIA, all those.
Yeah. So all the medicine names, the regimen, everything is all trying to be as open and available as possible. So that's at least in the United States side. I feel like we actually do a pretty good job of the human trials data. I think that having it clinicaltrials.gov is a good route forward.
I agree.
I don't think that you could.
I like this issue of like people just, there's a bunch of stuff that's registered that just never happens as well. Like there's crap there.
Yeah, exactly. There's a bunch of like unknown status. I just put in base editing and I just got a bunch of stuff. So, but my point is, I would hope that this would never be able to happen in the United States. I'd feel absolutely awful. That,
but it did. It's alluded to in the article of like now there was I know that case that was actually covered in one of my classes of like the first gene therapy I think pretty much ever in the United States. I think for severe combined immunodeficiency, quote unquote bubble boy syndrome.
Oh, interesting. I must have missed it. Interesting.
And that was a big case back then that like did have a chilling effect on gene therapy because like it seems like there were missteps there, but I imagine at the time like some people thought they were doing their due diligence.
Yeah. I think it's only going to get more important that we talk about this stuff, though. I really do. I think that it's only going to be a bigger part of our lives. These type of gene therapy medicines. I think that they're just going to be bigger and bigger.
Yeah,
genuinely.
I agree. I think there's, in my mind, there's lots of well, even just what we're talking about now, lots of ethical questions. But I think the ethical questions are going to become exponential as this gets rolled out potentially to the general public, or like you have to start answering the question of like, can you modify any gene for any purpose whatsoever? That conversation needs to be had probably sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, we should talk about it at measles, ladies and gentlemen. New record in the U.S. So basically, the United States had a massive measles outbreak from 1989 to 1992. Reagan defunded a bunch of city-based measles programs throughout his administration. Vaccine rates plummet in cities. Outbreak happens. We say, wow, we need a better vaccine program in order to do this. So after 1992, the United States implements the 2-dose measles regimen that basically from 1992 down to 2000 eliminates the United States in measles. So sorry, other way around. Eliminates measles in the United States. So that's what people talk about when they're saying this is the most amount of measles that we've had since 2000, which is when we eliminated it from the United States. So now, we've basically hit the most amount of measles that we've had in a year, and there's still 6 months left of the year to go. That's what people are kind of framing this and talking about it in those terms, if you're curious. There's really no signs of stopping, which is kind of the hard part to really talk about this. I mean, this is one of the ones that RFK was asked about in his hearing. Is the measles vaccine less dangerous than measles? And he said yes. Dr. Oz said, what do you do in regards to the measles outbreak that's happening in the United States? And he responded, well, we don't have to invent anything. People just need to get a booster shot of measles if they don't have it. So it's like one of those things where they're talking out of both sides of their mouths, right? And the RFK is downplaying this. And I saw something talking about some epidemiologist was talking about it, and they were kind of downplaying it, saying, well, a lot of these people that have the measles now, it's actually the 5-year-old to 18 years old. So we shouldn't like lump this all on the Republicans and RFK. And I'm like, what? No. Like if there was a culture of everyone needs to be vaccinated for measles, get your MMR, and it's the cool thing to do or whatever. We have a culture of pro MMR vaccinations. It doesn't matter what year you were unvaccinated. You would currently go to your local CVS and get an MMR vaccine, or your local physician, and get a vaccine immediately. So the fact that we have it still up in the air as like something that is an open debate, and if everyone has their own opinion, it is an absolute moral failure that we've had this, and it's been allowed to grow and fester in our society, and absolutely it's been debated now more because of the pandemic. But the idea that, like, oh, anyone older than 6 that's unvaccinated, you kind of just get, you're grandfathered in, so to speak. I'm like, I hate the framing of that. The idea every single administration should be pro vaccination for MMR, especially like, measles. Absolutely, like there's no excuse.
Yeah. Well, I can't champion your message more other than to add on. It's like, well, where are all the conservatives or RFK criticizing all of these weak children for their immune systems? Why did their immune system not just protect them? They were clearly
Yeah.
unhealthy. They were just weak children. Even those ones that, due to valid health reasons, they couldn't get vaccinated, and all that stuff. But yeah, I think, I think what I've said before is Trump likes to point fingers at, third world countries. Like, well, what's one of the hallmark signs? Not that I think these are good concepts, but like measles is, arguably it was eradicated, and you're on the road to not having eradication status. Like, is that not reverting to quote unquote third world country? And I think that should be the messaging, like, from the Democrats. So like Trump has turned the country into a third world country. You have actual signs pointing to that.
Yeah, man, I mean, there has to be, we're seeing a huge outbreak in these counties, and they're only like, they're not that much, man. Like that's the crazy thing. We're talking like a 5% drop, causing a lot of this stuff. A lot of the Ontario's epidemiological report was about 85% vaccinated in the more rural parts of the counties. So prominence that's causing a lot of the problems. It doesn't take much, and as long as this keeps going, I was debating.
And if
this
anything,
guy.
sorry to interrupt, but like,
Yeah, you're fine.
as you know, like with any infectious respiratory virus, like any case counts is almost certainly, especially in this case, like an underreporting, and probably maybe a significant underreporting. And if it's like 2,000, 2,500 now, it's probably in reality like whatever, 2,800, 3,000.
Yeah. And like what's so frustrating, I was talking to this guy about this case, and he was like, "Oh man, you guys are totally blowing this out of proportion. Like people aren't even dying from this." And it's like, well, I mean, the measles was so deadly in the 1900s because we didn't have antibiotics, right? So that's why, like, basically with the invention of antibiotics as a medicine, now people started not dying from the secondary respiratory infection that the bacteria in your throat basically invade your lungs because your body can't clear it anymore, and you get pneumonia and you die. That's how most people died from measles before, in the 1900s. But now we have those two. But now, so yeah, we're not seeing 100 million people die globally from measles. But what we are seeing, and what we will see, is that measles basically supercharges all the other viruses around it. So everything else that's at all-time highs right now, guys, for make America healthy again, these guys are making America diseased, over and over and over, and all these different diseases and parasites, their lethality is just going to go up and up, and it's so nefarious. In what happens, 30% of measles cases goes into immune amnesia. So you have even the people that did the due diligence, 93% of people are unvaccinated. So that means that 7% of people that are vaccinated are going to have a positive measles case with a lot of this stuff. So I mean, it's inevitable, and it's one of those predictive moments in science where like nobody wants to be correct. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to actually look at this and be like, but we're right. You know, like
Yeah,
if
because
anything,
this is
you wanna-
easily predictable.
exactly.
Like, and well, this has occurred before. And how, like, and it's interesting. This is always a difficult mentality for me to understand. Where like you said, you were having this conversation with a person, and like they were mentioning that like it's not a big deal because like there's not even that many people dying. I think there's like, let's say, 2
Yeah,
confirmed deaths associated to measles, and I think there
3.
were
Yeah,
2, 2 or 3. But like, is that the only, like, if there was a virus that like the infection just resulted in your legs falling off, is that like, well, not a big deal? Like, no one's dying. You just can no longer have any legs. Is that like the metric, or is that like, is the only bad outcome death? And if it's not death, then everything is just fine. That's clearly not the case. I don't think anybody really thinks like that.
I think it's how we've trained people to process tragedy, right? Like,
Probably.
we talk about in the news, like how many deaths they were from an event, right? And people like measure things. Like, hey, like, you know, I won't stray too far here. But like, gun violence in America, right? Like, me personally, and please feel free to judge me. But I don't think I'm alone here. I like, I hear about, gun violence, and it's like, oh, it's like, at least in America, it's like they didn't even break 10, like, yeah, it was a massacre, but like, I don't know, is it a big deal here in America where like we have those things every day? Like, that's like my initial reaction. I mean, obviously I feel like deep sympathy for the victims, but like, that's how they've trained us, is like, the number of bodies.
Sure.
And in America, like, if it doesn't hit like a high enough body count in terms of gun violence, we don't even talk about it. I don't even discuss it because there's just so many of them. So again, so I'll move away from that, and back to this. Yeah, like, we process this in depth. So you're saying, oh, there's a big problem. Well, okay, well, being a general, like an average Joe citizen, like, what do I hear? I hear about all kinds of, like, diseases and and ailments and whatever, right? That causes deaths, and like they'll give me like a body count, right? Like, what, it's rare that we ever talk about like something being debilitating, and like, what does that look like? We don't process it that way. We process it as a body count, right? Like, we don't know these people, how many people died, right? And then I will scale my empathy, if you have any, to match. And so, yeah, like in this moment where not a lot of people are dying. I mean, I thought to myself, I mean, I understand that there's emergency, but like when I'm looking at like the articles, right, they give you a body count, and I know in my head, I already know where that's going to lead, right? Like, oh, that's tiny. If you talk to a conservative, or a vaccine skeptic, or whatever, right, someone who is culturally uninclined to care about this, they're not like this isn't a big deal. Like, yeah, sure, you're telling me this is bad, but like, oh, whatever, only a few people. So it's not like you need a lesson. Sorry, I've said a lot. Go ahead.
No. I agree with you. In terms of like, yeah, there's been a lot of priming in terms of how we process of like, unless it's a body count, like pretty much not really that big of a deal. But then like, and I'm not saying like this is, I'm not applying this argument to you, but I'm like, but then pushing back against the anti-vaccine movement, you can use this argument in the favor of vaccines, because it's like, how many actual deaths are attributed to actual vaccines? Vaccine deaths do occur, but it's like single digit numbers. But
Yeah,
if
exactly.
there's one documented case, every conservative or anti-vax like latches onto it. Like, this is the biggest deal in the world, and therefore all vaccines out the window.
Yeah,
right?
it's motivated
literally
reasoning.
like literally, like, I actually did legitimately look into this one day. Like, what are the actual SARS-CoV-2 vaccine attributable deaths? Like, what actually happened from the mRNA lipid
Out
nanoparticles?
of billions of doses.
It's like less than 100. It's like less, like we're talking like insanely small numbers. Like, you're like, that is one of the safest medical treatments that we could possibly
Exactly.
know.
But if we start to say like sweeping that under, it's like not a big deal. Like the anti-vaccine movement would be like in uproar. Like no, like they would push back, saying like no, all of these, and even then they would bring in like, well, they would probably bring in my argument of like it's not just death that matters. You know, there's autism, right, and all the other stuff. And it's like, well, who cares about autism? If you're not dying, autism doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so exhausting. I mean, it's even during the pandemic, you had unvaccinated people dying at 10 times the rate as vaccinated people. This was during the alpha variant. So the alpha variant was the first one that had the and that was the one that was specifically designed with the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines. The highest efficacy that we've ever seen, 94.1%, I think it was, is like an incredible
Yeah.
feat of science, like genuinely was.
And
And
that
the
one did actually reduce transmission, if I remember correctly.
Yep,
The data
exactly,
was
and
there.
reduced dramatically. So it went like by well, after Omicron, it was like it reduced transmission by like 14%, but the alpha variant was significantly more. But basically, yeah, even during the alpha variant, even when unvaccinated people were dying at 10 times the rate, that you still have people scraping and saying this is unsafe. This is gonna, kill me, all that kind of stuff. And it's so frustrating because I do feel like unvaccinated people's lives do still matter. They are, even if they're taking their own life and they're being extremely like risky with it, right? We do still have like a fact of the matter that they are being misinformed, that they are victims in this stuff. And I feel like you have to look out, and say like and try to protect them, I guess, from themselves. I think that you have to, but it is especially with the measles though. That's with SARS-CoV-2. Okay, that is not as nefarious as measles. Measles has a whole slew of secondary impacts that make it way worse than SARS-CoV-2, like way worse, like the immune amnesia part, brain encephalopathy. After 20 years afterwards, you can die from it. So even the kids that are okay, that get it, that survive, they're all like, oh yeah, own to the lib. I got measles and I didn't die. Like, bro, you're not in the clear yet, and so it increases your ability to die from other viruses as well. It, measles is the one where you're uh, like, do we just put the RFK's own words on loop? Like, how can we like snap these people out of this thing, man? I don't get
I
it.
really think something that I brought up before, like from my understanding, and I think we briefly spoke about it, like insurance can't deny coverage based off of vaccine status or due to
Mhm.
vaccination status. I think that needs to change. And like
Yeah.
it's also alluded to, like or rather this. Well, I think it's fair to say that, generally speaking, these days, individuals who are anti-vaccine tend to be on the right, but there's definitely people on the left that are anti-vaccine.
Yeah.
But and like if they're on the right, like they also let's say if I'm lumping them in with the MAGA movement, they're concerned with like waste, fraud, and abuse. Like we talk about some of the economic toll, like in the article, they say like each measles case costs the United States more than $100,000 when factoring in healthcare spending and the days missed of work for sick people or caretakers. Like,
Yeah.
how is
How are
this
you gonna
not
pay
wasteful
for it?
spending?
How are you gonna exactly? How are you the whole thing with every single Republican to Democrat is always how are you gonna pay for it? How are you gonna pay for $100,000 per times all these new measles cases? Like
You're gonna pay for that war that you started.
Yeah,
exactly,
exactly.
Brian, exactly. The war on abroad and at home.
But I want to ask you a question, Dr. Greg. Do you agree
Mhm.
with Core's statement that um, insurance should be predicated on vaccine status?
Um, I do think that you should have like, I don't know if you should be able to go to regular like hospitals, like public hospitals, if you're unvaccinated on stuff like that. And I don't know if you should be able to, um, because you're just too much of a risk. You're just too much of a like that's so you're a bioweapon walking into a hospital with measles, and you could end the life of a lot of people. So I think that you have
waiting in the ER waiting room with that. Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy dangerous. So I think that there should be financial like penalties on it. Like levying it against the individual is tough. I have been really thinking about I saw this on my feed, like, and I'm gonna make a video about it. Like, I found a vaccine neutral physician, a pediatrician who's vaccine neutral. She doesn't recommend them or dissuade people from it. She's completely vaccine neutral, and I'm like, do, should we like be tracking pediatrician vaccination numbers? Like, and if they dip us below a certain point, should we charge pediatricians like a fine, or should we take their license away at some point? I'm kind of like down, like I'm sorry, but if your vaccination rate drops to like 90%, I'm like, okay, whatever. But if it's dropping to like 50% or like imagine 0%, a pediatrician that doesn't give a single vaccine the entire year, that doesn't sit right with me, man. That doesn't that you're actually doing harm to people. Like you're telling me you couldn't convince a single person in all of the entire year to get a vaccine. Sounds like you're kind of pushing people away. Sounds like you shouldn't have a license in order to do that. So I think that the financial onerous should, and the fees and stuff should be probably a little bit higher, because they do have they have the knowledge to know how dangerous that is. So that's where I think that the fees and levies should be.
So I'm going to put the pediatrician thing aside. Focusing on, you know, insurance, let's just call it discrimination, but
yeah,
not trying to like load that term. But like, with this insurance discrimination, well, that means that there'll be, this group of people could potentially not have access to healthcare. And I mean, you went even farther than Corey, saying that like they shouldn't be allowed into regular facilities, medical facilities. And I mean, if that's the case, I mean, we're already critically low on medical facilities in the United States, and getting lower, as we discussed before. So like that means they are locked out of hospitals in general. And like this is okay. This is a policy recommendation, but then the reason why I'm asking, why I brought this up in the first place, is because I understand how you square this with your previous statement about how you just talked about how like anti-vax like lives matter, basically, right? That these people, we should have a level of compassion for them, that they are victims and all that. If that's the case, then like how does that match with everything else you just said?
I mean, I let's just say if I'm a CEO of an insurance company, like there's no fucking way that I'm insuring unvaccinated measles patients. There's no way. Like
That's why the government forces you.
Yeah, there's no way. Can they? I don't know.
Yes, again. I mean, we do. We do. But a regulation, the insurance, medical insurance is one of the most regulated industries in America.
I think that's what I brought. Like, I don't think an insurance provider, but like I'm definitely not an expert on insurance in America.
The answer is yes. They do. Yes, they do. Like you can't discriminate on race, right? Like that's a government regulation. Of course you can't.
Interesting.
Yeah, last I looked up, of like the vaccination status cannot be discriminated against, as in an insurance company cannot deny you coverage based off of vaccination status.
Yeah, they cannot deny it. Yeah. The ACA prohibits health insurance from denying coverage, limiting benefits, or charging more based on pre-existing conditions and health status factors. Oh my God. That's not what that fucking is supposed to be. Oh my God. See, that's like health factors and health status. That is like self-imposed though. I really do feel like that is really weird. I don't know. Okay. I think I think I understand what you're talking about. And look, I think we are in a I don't know genuinely what the best package would be altogether of this. I really am trying to like spitball and figure out ideas like how I would probably do it if I was like clean slate. I would probably tie it to healthcare insurance, vaccine status to child tax credits, and you would get basically $8,000 a year in order to vaccinate your child in tax credits. If you don't want to vaccinate your child, you lose $8,000 and it costs you $8,000 a year. So if you want to, if that's what you want to do, that's the game that you want to play, like, okay. That's how from what I understand, that's how Australia does
I
it.
think the penalty should be, well, maybe if it's shown to be effective, but let's just say, I think many parents' calculations will change if they're racking up tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of healthcare costs if their child is unvaccinated.
It seems light. That seems very light. Yeah, $10,000 is very light. It's like that's not that much. I think we should incentivize more, honestly, but give people, if you're vaccinated, probably give you more. I do think that like giving people money is better than denying them services or
Sure, carrot versus stick.
ostracizing
I take your
people.
point, and
Yeah.
I agree overall with that approach.
That's how I would. But like as a yeah, so that's how I guess that's holistically how I would think about it. But
I hadn't heard of this Australian policy apparently, and I think that's actually quite interesting. And I'd love to hear more about that. That's actually that sounds like a workable system, and a way to get vaccine rates up if we can properly manage it, so there's not way a fraud there, because these are the exact type of people to lie and to commit
True,
fraud,
yes.
honestly. But so
People are literally fraud faking vaccine status during.
yeah, you could buy your SARS-CoV-2 fake vaccine status.
Yeah, and so, but I just pushing this point a little further, because like you push back on the provision in ACA about like prior health status, right? And I understand what your pushback is here, because like, hey, like the point of that of that clause was like, hey, if you have a pre-existing condition, right, like something hereditary or like whatever, right, and then you're like try to seek insurance, right, like they shouldn't be able to discriminate against you, and like make it damn near impossible for you to get insurance by jacking up the rates. So like I hear you. That's like that's what that was for. But it turns out you can also for something self-imposed, that this can also help you. However, like, and so you were pushing back on that, but like, if a person cuts off their leg, full knowledge, cuts off their leg, should they still be able to get care?
I would think that there would be a psychological reason.
In Canada, they would get care.
I think that there would be someone's like not in their right mind, so I think that you would administer
Lots of
care.
Anti-vaxxers aren't in their right mind. Like honestly, like
Yeah.
like there
True.
are
It's a
some
good point.
who are, but like others are literally are not in their right mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would. Yeah. I think
if they think the vaccine is going to give them 5G, they might not be in the right mind.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of reasons to believe that these that there are a lot of mental illness being played on here. But and this this dovetails with your first statement that like all these people are victims, right?
Yeah.
And so like if that's the case, then I don't know how we can be punitive against them if that is what your moral standpoint is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there has to be some social friction, somewhere. Right now, it's getting them signed up for kindergarten. Basically, you have to do it in order to get into public schools. If you don't do public schools, you have to do homeschooling or private schooling. And that's going to be way more money than you can afford. So you have to get your child vaccinated. Other countries do a one-time fee, which is kind of weird, like a $200 fee, $500 fee or something like that in parts of Europe. So in a way, having
As in a
like,
fee if you're not vaccinated?
correct, yeah, I'm not getting it. Yeah, in a lot of ways,
$200
actually,
seems like nothing, or 200 euros even seems nothing.
exactly. Yeah, it isn't. It isn't. The United States actually has one of the more punitive measures in terms of like denying education. You're gonna deny a public education to someone because of vaccine status. Like that's very nefarious. So now they're not even going to be educated now in the public, like at all, like in school. So it is one of very punitive measures in the throughout globally. There was a really interesting vaccine study comparison that I was reading, and it was basically compared different vaccination policies throughout the world. That's where I learned about the Australia thing, and also yeah, about the different Euro models and stuff. But yeah, we are more punitive than most. But I don't know, man. My wife works at a hospital right now, and I do worry about people going in there, and she works with little babies like NICU, or whatever. But like, I'm, what if one of the parents is unvaccinated, and one of these, granola moms comes in, or dads, and now they want to see their baby at the NICU, and they come in with measles, and boom, like, what do? They have thought about this. There's positive pressure containment rooms that specifically set up for this, all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, bro, I don't want to be a freaking guinea pig, a test subject in this idea of like, are we going to be the 7% that she's going to, bring that home to us? Like, what does that even mean for her? And genuinely, I do think that it's going to get to the point where it's because physicians aren't union. I think it's going to be the nurses unions that change the needle on this. Genuinely, it's going to be a workplace.
Good pun.
It's a it's a workplace danger to be exposed to measles constantly, and I feel like the nurses unions are going to stand up and be like, bro, you cannot do this to us. Like, you can't just be exposing us to preventable diseases constantly. It's not fair for us. So I think ultimately it's going to come down to that.
But Prime, are you? Oh, go ahead, Prime.
No, you go. You first.
I was just gonna ask you, like, how do you feel about my recommendation or stance for, like, let's say, are you against pro or on the fence?
Sorry, which one?
In terms of like insurance companies should be able to deny coverage based off of vaccination status.
I'm a bit torn on this.
That's fair.
Like hearing what Dr. Greg was saying about his lovely wife, like I think what he's saying is a very valid concern, and hey, I'm imagining, my imaginary baby, in that, NICU, and then somehow, or maybe not even NICU, like the nursery or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And because of some idiot who comes in to see their own kid, or not even their own kid, someone else's kid that they know, and like that causing an issue and getting my child sick, that that sounds utterly horrible. And then it's like, and then there's the expense. You talk about like putting them in like a positive pressure room, or whatever, right? It's like, well, now what we have to do as a society is work our way around these people. You know what this sounds like to me, right? This sounds like the effort to accommodate smokers, right? How, like, smokers,
That's so true.
right? Yeah, like back when smokers were more dominant, like the small amount of people would just like go into a room and start smoking it up, right, and just puffing away. And let's say
we had restaurants with smoking and non-smoking sections, if everybody remembers that.
But like in a room, like it would just be acceptable that they would just like take control of the air, fill it with smoke, even if like 90% of the people in the room weren't smokers. Now they all have to suffer for that.
Well, we just pass around respirators to all the non-smokers, right?
Or yeah, exactly, right? And like think about but like the smoking and non-smoking sections, right? Like that's another example I was going to get to, but like there is a lot of infrastructure that goes into that, right?
Yeah.
Like those smoking sections, they got like like air systems that like try to suck up the air so they can puff away and do that. But
Yeah.
like if you've been in one of those restaurants with a smoking and non-smoking section, right? They don't, those systems only do so much, right?
Yeah.
And you still have to deal with it. And that's just like the world try to mold itself around against this like this group that like makes the environment around them worse and actually even more dangerous. Even we're talking about
and makes
smoking,
themselves
right?
worse too.
Yeah. All right, but I'm not concerned about themselves. Fuck them, right? That's not my concern. My concern is everyone else. And yeah, so anyway, all to say is that like I hear Dr. Greg. I don't think that his concerns aren't insubstantial. They're very substantial. Like seriously, something that we should need to consider. How we actually tackle that, I can't say. I'm sure.
Dude, my hot take is that we lost the war against smoking way too early. So we should have just transitioned to like blowing trees so that I could bring a little joint with me and have my after meal joint at the thing. That should be legal. You know what I mean? The cigarettes are banned.
What? No,
but
no. Well,
you know what I mean?
that smells awful. I don't want that smell.
It's California, man. Come on, with states' rights.
I don't live in California. I don't want to live in California.
States' yeah, it's bad, guys. It's bad, but yeah.
But like,
go ahead.
From a Canadian perspective, it's like, well, because I'm bringing up, let's say, from an American perspective, insurance companies should be able to deny coverage based off of vaccination status. But like, I live in Canada, a public healthcare system, right? As in, like, if someone gets measles here and they require medical care, like, they go to a hospital. And like, do I want our healthcare system to reject them? Like, I'm mixed on that. Like, I lean now towards like, well, for the sake of whatever equity, they should get treatment. But like, I am sympathetic to the notion of like, this is if measles gets worse and worse here, or other preventable, well, let's say other diseases that increase as a result of dropping vaccination status, like that will be an undue burden on our healthcare system that is already quite fragile. And I don't know what you do about that. Just like, I'm sure there's something similar, if not maybe more strict in the United States, of like, if you require a liver transplant, but you were an alcoholic or you are an alcoholic, there are certain criteria you have to meet in order to get that transplant. I think you have to prove sobriety for, I think it's like 6 months to a year before you're eligible for liver transplant, because like, we don't want to waste this liver. Well, I don't think we want to waste these healthcare resources on something that is almost virtually 100% preventable in something like measles or other vaccine preventable diseases.
Dude, it's just like a level of narcissism that we have to deal with as a society, that it is I don't know. I don't think that the problem is we haven't really encountered anything like this in modernity in the last like 100 years. And then even 100 years ago with the flu outbreaks and stuff, there would be people that are coming together. There were the fringe kind of like sidebar people, I would say, but I don't know. Maybe that's not true. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there would be the more or less vaccination. Obviously, there's less vaccinations 100 years ago, but then there's more rampant disease and spread and like people dying. So it's like we're just the victim of our own success in science, right? People don't see measles. Sure. They don't even know. There's someone in chat, the YouTube chat. It's like, what's the big deal about measles? So it's like doesn't even
Listen,
register in his brain.
If you saw people walking around with smallpox and what that looks like, you'd be lining up, I'm pretty sure.
It's great. Like what imagine being like, what's the big deal about a broken arm? Like what's the big deal? You're like, wow, that's really nice that you've never had to deal with that. That's not that's a cool. What's the big deal about money? Like, what do you mean? You just you have it, you spend it, and then it's in your bank, and then you just have it. Like, you never had a virus that's taken over your body before. How would you know what that felt like? And it does. The viruses exist, and it's like, it's just, I don't know, man. It's tough. I think You're exactly right. And as a society, like how like what do we do? Like what is the bending over backwards that we have to do for such a small percentage of the society that has such a like it impacts every single person, and yet it's such a small like we have this is from a 5% drop in vaccination status. 5%. And here we are, you know, um and that's the problem. If it goes down another 5%, imagine that, dude. Imagine that. Like, so like what is my question really is like, what's the bottom? You know, where is the bottom? Is it's probably going to go down another 5% until it happens, you know, at least. So it's like what happens? Like, do we actually have a mutating measles virus that goes around the vaccine? So we have to get new mRNA lipid nanoparticle measles vaccines, and then now a whole new round of conspiracy starts, and now it's even worse now again. And so I just it's I don't know. I think you have to like talk about it, and you have to we have to like stand up to these people. I feel like I feel like the pediatricians that aren't vaccinating kids need to be held accountable. I think that we know for sure that they know what measles are. We know for sure that they are trained, and they literally in that space because we as a society give them that privilege through the license. And I'm sorry, but if you're not vaccinating your kid and your kids and you're a pediatrician, you're a bad person and you should have your license removed. I think that's unequivocal. I think that's as clean cut as we can. My wife was like, well, a lot of the conversations start at like the nurse levels too. And I'm like, well, yeah, and we were talking about the vitamin K shot thing, and I'm like, if a nurse is on the floor and you link every single case to that nurse, you know, not giving a vitamin K shot, like they should lose their license too. And that was a very contentious dog walk home. Let's just say that. But I'm like, we have to hold someone accountable, guys. It's like, who is going to be held accountable, right? Like who? Like I don't know. I genuinely don't know
Yeah, I
where
struggle
that
myself
line is.
too. But as of now, I lean towards my recommendation of well, at least in the American system, like I think people will change pretty quickly if they're denied insurance coverage and they actually have to pay for their consequences.
Exactly, dude. It's the cost of public school. That is the reason why people do it. It's the cost of blank that you get backed into a corner and you're like, okay, whatever. It doesn't. I guess it's okay.
I'm more willing to simply do this for adults than children, right? Children have the care of their parents. That I'd definitely be more amenable to this plan if we were damn it, if we were looking at adults, like, yeah, you decide to be unvaccinated, right? Well, then yes, you boost your insurance rates for that because you are a greater risk. And you are making yourself a greater risk, right? Like if you've burnt down a house before, right? Well, then maybe your home insurance the next time you can still get it, but just like your home insurance rates might just be higher, you know. But like like the children, like I want the parents to still be able to afford insurance for their children, even though they put their children in an impossible position.
Yeah, I understand the sentiment. And like I am sympathetic and empathetic towards children. At least I try to be, and I think I am. But I understand I understand that my position can come across as cruelty towards children. That's a fair critique.
Yeah, man, it's a regular thing with you, Corey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finally.
All right, guys.
Well, another week. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you as always. Always a good conversation. And yeah, that was a cool thing. The gene therapy article.
Yeah, I think there's still even more to unpack there. I'm going to be processing that for probably a while.
Yeah, exactly. Anything you wanted to say, guys, or any topic on the Rivery that you wanted to tease, Prime?
I think I'm going to do uh something about the war. God damn it. Hold on one second.
Guys, if you're not aware, Prime, there's a big debate panel culture in TikTok, and people go on panels all the time with like 1-sentence debate prompts. Okay, Prime gives you like a 2-paragraph essay. It's amazing, and literature to review, and it's like it's incredible. He has really, if you really are interested in in-depth, good political panels that are, like 6 people, 5-6 people. It's very good. So check out Prime's debates for
the
sure.
reason I'm having trouble is because I haven't actually written that. The next thing.
He puts in work, guys. He puts in work.
There was a topic I was actually thinking of earlier today, and it had something to do with the war, and us restarting it. Something Iran. It might have been about the cost, but like I can't remember right now. But anyway, when I do, I will be sending out a whole thing, a whole like long prompt on that. And yes, I do send out reading material to my participants to basic knowledge so they can participate in that discussion. Anyway, so if that interests you, consider finding me on Twitch, YouTube, Kick. So Prime Kai, PrimeCayes. Love to have you. Thanks so much for having me.
And you can find me on Twitch, CoreyCam84, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram, Substack, TikTok. It's Corey Campbell. And yeah, as always, that's been great, and look forward to next week.
Appreciate you guys.